Olivia Kent didn't expect much from her Tuesday, just a few hours at the neighborhood playground with her 5-year-old son. Read, a lukewarm coffee, and maybe a few minutes to breathe. What she definitely didn't expect was the man in sunglasses and a worn gray hoodie lounging on a park bench like he had nowhere else to be, watching her son with a curious smile. Like he'd never seen a kid launch off a slide with such reckless joy. She narrowed her eyes. "Reed, stay where I can see you," she called, brushing her hair out of her face as the spring breeze tugged it loose from her ponytail. "Yes, Mommy," Reed shouted, already halfway up the ladder again, his tiny sneakers thudding against the metal rungs. The man's gaze shifted to her, and for a second, Olivia felt this strange little jolt right in the center of her chest. He wasn't flashy. He looked relaxed, ordinary even, but there was something about him. His posture was too confident. His watch, peeking out from under his hoodie, looked like it cost more than her rent. He raised a brow. "Yours?" Olivia looked back at Reed. "Yeah, he's mine." "He's brave," the man said. Launched off that slide like he was trying to break the sound barrier. Olivia gave a small laugh despite herself. "That's Reed. No fear. I'm Olivia, by the way." He lowered his sunglasses. His eyes were this piercing steel blue, stunning and way too focused on her. Emerson Oakes. Now that name rang a bell. She didn't know where from, but it definitely wasn't just a regular guy name. "Well, Emerson," she said, feeling awkward suddenly. "Thanks for not calling child services when he flew off the slide." He chuckled, low and smooth. "I'm not judging. I like fearless kids." Reed ran over just then, dirt smudged on his cheek, hair sticking up in every direction. "Mom, can I go again?" "2 more times," Olivia said. "Then we get groceries." Reed turned to Emerson, eyes wide. "Are you her friend?" Emerson blinked. No," Olivia said quickly, but her cheeks flushed. "We just met." Emerson looked down at Reed and grinned. "Well, I'd definitely like to be." Reed shrugged. "Okay." Then he sprinted back to the ladder. Olivia turned to Emerson with an amused look. "Well, you've been approved by the toughest critic." He looked at her, really looked. "That's all I needed." Something about the way he said it made her stomach flip. She stepped back, uneasy. "We should go soon. Can I walk you to your car?" he asked, standing now. He was tall. Taller than she expected. And definitely not just some guy killing time at a playground. She hesitated. "You don't have to." "I want to," he said simply. They walked in silence as Reed skipped ahead. When they reached her old sedan, Emerson paused before speaking again. "Do you come here often?" She laughed. "What is this, a rom-com?" "Maybe," he said, smiling. "But seriously, will I see you again?" She hesitated. "I guess that depends." "On what?" "On whether you're just some guy with a nice watch or someone who's gonna disappear the second he gets bored." Emerson looked at her like he was surprised she'd say something like that. But instead of being offended, he nodded slowly. "Fair enough." He pulled something from his pocket. A small business card, no logo, just his name and a number. "I'll be here tomorrow afternoon," he said, "if you want to talk." "No pressure." She took the card, surprised. "You're not gonna push it?" "I don't chase women who don't want to be chased," he said. "But I'd really like to get to know you, Olivia." And then he left. No dramatic exit. Just walked down the sidewalk like he had all the time in the world. Olivia stood there for a second, watching him go, heart pounding for reasons she couldn't explain. "Mom!" Reed tugged her hand. "Can we get strawberries?" She blinked, snapping out of it. "Yeah, baby. Let's go." That night, after Reed was asleep, Olivia stared at Emerson's card on the kitchen table. She Googled him. Her heart nearly stopped. Emerson Oakes, billionaire investor, CEO of Oakes Capital, net worth in the billions. Forbes, gala photos, private jets, penthouse in Tribeca, and he'd been sitting on a park bench like he had nothing better to do. She sat back, stunned. "What the hell?" she whispered. The next day, she told herself she wasn't going back. But by 3 o'clock, She was at the playground again, Reed on the swing, Olivia pacing. And then, like a scene out of a dream, Emerson showed up. Same hoodie, same calm expression. "Hey," he said. She folded her arms. "So, billionaire, huh?" He didn't flinch. "You Googled me, wouldn't you?" He smiled. "I hoped you would." She stepped closer. "Why were you at this playground?" "Because my assistant's kid has soccer practice nearby," he said. "She told me this was a good place to unwind." "I didn't expect to meet anyone." Olivia studied him. "Why me?" He didn't hesitate. "Because you looked like you were holding the whole world together with one hand and still smiling for your kid. That kind of strength. It's rare." Her throat tightened. Emerson tilted his head. "Can I take you to dinner?" She blinked. "With Reed." He smiled. "With Reed. Somewhere kid-friendly. Somewhere nice." She hesitated. "Let me show you who I really am," he said. "Not the guy on Forbes. Just me." She exhaled. "Okay." He grinned. "Tomorrow night?" She nodded. And when he gently brushed his fingers against hers before leaving, Olivia felt at the beginning of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The restaurant sat on the waterfront, its wide glass windows overlooking the harbor where sailboats drifted lazily beneath the soft lavender sky. Olivia paused just outside the entrance, one hand resting on Reed's shoulder, the other tightening around the worn strap of her bag. She hadn't expected white tablecloths and a valet in gloves. The place looked like it belonged in a movie, crystal chandeliers glittering from inside, polished stone floors catching the last rays of sunlight. Reed tilted his head up at her. "It's really shiny in there." "Yeah," Olivia breathed. "It is." Before she could talk herself out of walking in, the glass doors opened, and Emerson stepped out. Gone was the hoodie from the park. Tonight, he wore a dark navy blazer over a crisp black shirt, collar undone, no tie. He looked effortless, but there was a sharpness to him now, like a man who was used to being listened to. "You made it," he said, his gaze settling on her, then shifting to Reed. "And you brought the most important guy." "Mom said I had to wear shoes that match," Reed said solemnly, pointing at his sneakers. Emerson crouched to Reed's level. "You're pulling them off." Reed grinned wide, then darted past him toward the glass doors without hesitation. Emerson stood. "I had them prep something special for him. He won't even have to look at a menu." Olivia raised a brow. "You called ahead?" "I like being prepared." His tone was light, but there was something underneath it. Like he was trying not to give away too much too fast. They followed Reed inside, where a hostess greeted them like they were royalty. People turned to look, some with curiosity, others with recognition. Emerson didn't acknowledge any of it, just placed a hand gently on the small of Olivia's back as they were led to a private table near the windows. A waiter approached with a tray before they could even sit. "For the young gentleman," he said, placing a plate in front of Reed stacked with miniature sliders, sweet potato fries shaped like stars, and a small bowl of strawberries. Reed's eyes lit up. "Whoa." Emerson waited until Reed was distracted with ketchup before speaking. "I wasn't sure how formal to make this, but I figured if I was going to ask for your time, I'd better make it count." Olivia studied him across the table. The dim light caught the edge of his jaw, the hint of stubble like he hadn't bothered to shave. "You're not what I expected." "I get that a lot." She leaned forward slightly. "So why me?" "Really?" He took a sip of water, then set the glass down carefully. "Because I've spent years surrounded by people who only tell me what I want to hear. You didn't flinch when I told you my name. You didn't pretend to know who I was. You were just honest. I didn't exactly roll out a red carpet for you." "Exactly." A pause stretched between them, filled with the quiet hum of conversation and clinking glasses around the room. "I wasn't looking for anything," Olivia admitted. "And I'm not sure I can give much. My life's already full. I'm not trying to take anything. I'm just asking for a seat at the table." She wiped her hands on her napkin, glancing at Reed, who was now stacking fries like building blocks. "You're used to getting what you want." "Not always. You expect people to say yes. I don't expect it from you." Her heart thudded once, hard. She looked down at her plate, then back up. "What happens when this gets complicated?" He didn't blink. "Then we figure it out." The waiter returned with 2 plates, hers a delicate piece of seared salmon over risotto, his a steak so perfectly cut it looked like it belonged in an art gallery. Olivia stared at her dish for a second. "You didn't ask what I liked." Emerson shrugged. "I asked your son." Her eyes snapped to his. "You asked Reed. Said you love anything with lemon. And that you eat fast when you're worried." She laughed, the sound escaping before she could stop it. "He's been spying on me. He's very observant." They ate, and the conversation shifted away from business, away from the real world. Emerson asked about Reed's school, about Olivia's job at the bookstore, about the last good book she read. He didn't interrupt. He didn't steer. He just listened. When dessert arrived, chocolate mousse with edible gold flecks, Reed leaned across the table and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Mom, is he your boyfriend now?" Olivia nearly choked. Emerson tilted his head toward Reed. "I'm interviewing for the job." Reed nodded. "You're doing good so far." Later, as they walked out into the night, Reed holding Olivia's hand and humming to himself, Emerson lingered beside her. "I know this is fast," he said, "but I'd like to see you again. Just you." Olivia hesitated. "I'd have to get someone to watch Reed." "I can arrange that." She shot him a look. "I'm not letting you hire a nanny. I meant a reservation, at a place with a kids club." She gave him a long stare. "You really don't do things halfway, do you?" "I don't know how to." Reed tugged her sleeve. "Can we come back here?" "We'll see," she said. Emerson leaned closer, his voice low. "Let me surprise you next time." She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. And as they drove home, Olivia glanced at Reed through the rearview mirror, then at the card still tucked into her bag. Her world had always been small by necessity, carefully built, tightly held. But something had shifted tonight, something she wasn't sure she could ignore. The next evening, Olivia stood in front of the glass doors of an elevator that gleamed like a mirror. She adjusted the strap of the navy blouse she'd borrowed from her sister and took in her reflection, soft curls falling around her shoulders, a nervous flush in her cheeks, and her fingers clutching the strap of her crossbody bag like it was a lifeline. Reed was home with her neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, who'd been more than happy to watch him after Emerson offered to send over dinner from a local bistro she'd always raved about. She took a breath as the elevator doors slid open, revealing a sleek interior lined with brushed gold accents and soft lighting. The attendant inside greeted her with a polite nod. "Penthouse," she said quietly, stepping in. The ride was silent except for the faint hum of the elevator. Olivia's stomach twisted with each passing floor. She wasn't sure what had compelled her to say yes when Emerson called that morning and asked if she could meet him somewhere with a view. She only knew that a part of her, the part that had been numb for years, had started to wake up. When the elevator opened, she stepped into a space that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire penthouse, revealing the skyline bathed in twilight. The room was expansive and warm, not cold or sterile like she'd imagined someone that wealthy might live. Soft gray tones, plush seating, and an open kitchen that gleamed under pendant lights. A single long table had been set near the windows, adorned with candles flickering gently in the breeze from an open terrace door. And there he was. Emerson stood on the terrace in a dark sweater and tailored pants, hands in his pockets, looking out over the city like he owned it, which, in some ways, he probably did. He turned when he heard her steps. "You're early," he said, crossing the room. "I didn't want to get stuck in traffic," she replied, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. He stopped in front of her. "You look incredible." "I feel intimidated," she admitted, eyes scanning the room again. "This place doesn't feel real. It's just walls and windows," he said. "The view's what makes it worth anything." She gave a dry laugh. "I live in a one-bedroom with a sink that leaks when it rains." He tilted his head. "You say that like it's something to apologize for." "I'm not apologizing. I'm just saying. This is a lot." "I know," he said. "That's why I didn't bring you here first." She stepped to the window. Is this where you live? Sometimes. That sounds lonely. He paused. It is. She glanced over her shoulder. Why? He moved beside her, the city lights painting his profile with gold. Because I can buy anything but not trust. Not honesty. Not someone who sees me without calculating what they can get. You think I'm not calculating? I think you're honest about what you want and what you don't. She folded her arms. I didn't come here to be dazzled, Emerson. I didn't bring you here to do that. Then what is this? She asked, turning to face him fully now. He exhaled slowly. This is me trying to let you in. She studied him for a long moment. Why me? You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women who don't come with a 5-year-old and a mountain of student debt. Because you don't pretend, he said. You don't flatter. You don't ask what's in it for you. And when I saw you at that park, I saw someone who's been through hell and still shows up every day for someone else. Her throat tightened. That's not a reason to fall for someone. It's the best one I've ever had. She looked away, blinking hard. You don't know me. I want to. Silence stretched between them, heavy and uncertain. Then he added, I made dinner. Myself. Her eyes widened. Seriously. Don't look so shocked. I had a life before boardrooms. Come on, it's not gourmet. But I didn't set off the smoke alarm, so I'm calling it a win. He led her to the open kitchen, where 2 plates were already waiting. Pasta tossed with sautéed vegetables, fresh herbs, and a drizzle of something that smelled like lemon and garlic. Wait, she said, pulling out a chair. You cooked this. Start to finish. She took a bite, then blinked. Okay, this is actually amazing. He grinned. I used to work in a restaurant when I was 19. Before college. Before all of this. Now that I believe, she said, cutting another bite. You seem like someone who never stops. Not unless I want to. She didn't respond right away. Then I'm not looking for someone to rescue me. I'm not offering rescue, he said. I'm offering space beside me. If when you're ready. They ate and the mood shifted. Easier, lighter? She asked about his first job and he told her about washing dishes in a dive bar outside Boston. She told him about the time she delivered a dozen pizzas to the wrong address and ended up eating cold pepperoni in her car, crying because Reed had been sick and she couldn't afford the medicine that week. He didn't offer sympathy. He just listened, and that somehow meant more. After dinner, they stepped onto the terrace. The city stretched endlessly beneath them, a sea of lights and movement. Sometimes I look down and wonder if anyone sees me from below, he said. Or if I'm just another light in the skyline. You're not invisible, she said. You see me. I see a man who's afraid of being wanted for the wrong reasons. He looked at her then. And do you want me? She didn't flinch. I'm not sure yet. He stepped closer. That's honest. I told you I don't pretend. He reached for her hand, and when his fingers closed around hers, she didn't pull away. I have to go soon, she said quietly. Reed's bedtime. I'll walk you out. They rode the elevator in silence. When they reached the lobby, he turned to her. Come back, he said. Whenever you want. No pressure. No expectations. She hesitated, then nodded. I might. He opened the door for her, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then she stepped out into the night, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. Emerson watched her go until she disappeared into the shadows outside. And for the first time in a very long time, he hoped. Olivia adjusted the strap of her tote as she stepped off the elevator into the quiet hallway of her apartment building. The hum of the city had faded behind her, replaced with the muffled sounds of evening routines, someone's television droning behind a closed door, a baby crying faintly down the hall. She unlocked her front door and slipped inside. Greeted by the warm scent of lavender from the diffuser she always kept humming by the window. Reed was curled up on the couch in pajamas, a half-finished picture book resting on his chest. Mrs. Delaney glanced up from her knitting. He made it through 3 chapters before he passed out, she whispered with a smile. Olivia stepped over and brushed a kiss across Reed's forehead. Thank you again. I owe you. Mrs. Delaney waved her off as she stood. You owe me nothing. He's a delight. And that dinner, my heavens. I haven't had risotto like that since my honeymoon in Florence. Once the door clicked shut behind her neighbor, Olivia let out a long breath and leaned against the wall. The evening with Emerson had left her rattled in ways she hadn't anticipated. Not because of anything he did wrong, but because he had done everything right, and she didn't know how to make sense of that. She didn't hear from him for 3 days. The silence felt deliberate, not cold, not distant, just space. Like he was giving her room to breathe. On the 4th day, a knock came at the door. She opened it to find a delivery man holding a large envelope. For Olivia Kent, he said, handing it over before turning and heading back toward the stairwell. She shut the door and ripped the envelope open. Inside was a sheet of thick, cream-colored stationery with a handwritten note in fluid, masculine script. I'd rather ask you in person, but I wasn't sure if you were ready for that yet. There's an event this Saturday at the museum. Formal, a little ridiculous, probably too many cameras. But I'd like you to be there. With me. I'll have a car waiting. Emerson. Beneath the note was a printed invitation, an exclusive benefit gala for the Children's Arts Foundation. Olivia's heart hammered. Not because of the invitation itself, but because of what it represented. He wasn't playing games. That Saturday, she stood in front of her closet staring at the lone formal dress she owned, something she'd bought on clearance 5 years ago for a wedding and never worn since. It was simple and soft, with a neckline that made her feel exposed, but not in a bad way. She emerged from her room to find Reed on the couch, munching cereal with wide eyes. Whoa, he said. You look like a movie star. She laughed. You think so? Yeah. You smell fancy too. She bent down and kissed the top of his head. You be good for Mrs. Delaney, all right? She said we're making cookies. Then I expect at least one saved for me. A black car waited at the curb when she stepped outside, the driver opening the door with a polite nod. The ride to the museum was quiet, but Olivia's thoughts were anything but. When she arrived, a red carpet stretched out in front of the grand stone steps, flanked by photographers and guests dressed in shimmering gowns and tailored tuxedos. She hesitated just outside the car until she saw him. Emerson stood at the top of the steps, his tuxedo tailored within an inch of perfection, but it wasn't the suit that stole her breath. It was the look on his face when he saw her. Something fierce. Something unguarded. He descended the steps without a word, took her hand, and pulled her gently into his side. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. Neither was I, she replied. You're here. That's enough. Inside, the museum had been transformed into a glittering wonderland, floral arrangements climbing marble columns, a string quartet playing softly beneath a massive chandelier, and tables dotted with candles flickering in tall crystal holders. As they moved through the crowd, whispers followed them. That's Emerson Oakes. Who's she? Definitely not from around here. Olivia kept her chin high. You okay? Emerson asked softly as they reached the edge of the crowd. I feel like I wandered into someone else's dream. Then let's make it yours. He guided her toward the center of the room, where an auctioneer was preparing to announce the evening's first item. Olivia clutched her small clutch tighter. I should have asked, she said under her breath. Why me, for this? Why now? Because this is part of my world, he said. And I want you to see it, not the money, not the people. Just what it looks like when something matters to me. She turned to him. What if I don't belong here? He shook his head. You belong anywhere you choose to stand. Later, as the auction wound down and couples began to drift toward the dance floor, Emerson leaned in. Dance with me. She hesitated. I haven't danced in years. Then let's be terrible together. He took her hand and she followed him to the center of the floor. The music was slow, the kind that wrapped around your ribs and made everything feel softer. He placed one hand at her waist, the other holding hers, and they moved in a quiet rhythm. I never thought I'd want this, she whispered. Neither did I, he murmured. But then you walked into that park. They danced in silence for a long moment, the world narrowing to just the two of them. When the music faded, Emerson didn't let her go. I don't want this to be one night, he said. I don't want to keep you in the background of my life. She stared up at him, heart thudding. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to build something real. With you. With Reed. Tears pricked at her eyes, and she blinked them away. You don't even know what that means. I do. It means waking up to cereal on the couch and stepping on Legos. It means grocery runs and school pickups and nights where everything falls apart. And I still want all of it. Her voice broke. You're serious. I've never been more. She took a breath. Then you're going to have to prove it. I plan on it. 2 weeks later, Olivia stood at the edge of a newly built reading corner inside the local children's library, watching Reed curl up with a book on a plush beanbag chair. Emerson stood beside her, his arm wrapped around her waist. He'd donated the funds anonymously. Why didn't you want your name on the plaque? She asked. Because I didn't do it for that. She leaned into him. You really are impossible. He kissed her temple. But hopelessly devoted. She smiled, heart full, and turned to face him fully. So what now? Now we build a life. Ours. And when Reed looked up and saw them standing together, he grinned. Mom? Is he staying for dinner? Olivia looked up at Emerson. Yes, she said. He's staying. Olivia tapped the edge of her pen against the counter at the bookstore, her gaze drifting to the clock above the shelves. It was just afternoon, and the place was quiet except for the soft hum of the overhead lights and the occasional rustle of pages from a customer tucked into the reading nook. She glanced down at the stack of invoices in front of her, but didn't move to finish them. Her thoughts kept wandering to Emerson. Things had shifted again in the last week, not in a dramatic, sweeping way like before, but in the quiet, steady way that felt even heavier with meaning. He hadn't just shown up in her life. He'd stayed. He'd made space in his schedule for her and Reed without turning it into a spectacle, without changing the rhythm of their lives. He came over for dinner and helped clean up without being asked. He showed up to Reed's school play and waited in line for cupcakes like every other parent. He brought Olivia tea when she was too tired to keep her eyes open, and never asked for anything in return. And today he was bringing someone important to meet her. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up and felt her breath catch. Emerson walked in wearing a heather gray sweater and dark jeans, casual but impossibly polished. But it wasn't his presence that made her pulse stutter, it was the woman walking beside him. Tall, elegant, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a sleek twist. Her coat was tailored, her heels understated but impossibly expensive. Her expression unreadable. Olivia, Emerson said as they reached the front counter. This is my mother, Alexandra Oakes. Olivia wiped her palms discreetly on her skirt and stepped out from behind the register. It's nice to meet you. Alexandra studied her with the kind of gaze Olivia had only seen in courtroom dramas, sharp, assessing, and far too intelligent to be easily impressed. So, Alexandra said, her voice cool and crisp, you're the woman who's made my son impossible to reach on weekends. I don't mean to monopolize his time, Olivia said evenly. I didn't say it was a bad thing. Alexandra's gaze flicked toward Emerson. He's been too accessible for far too long. I'm glad someone finally made him care about being unavailable. Emerson gave his mother a warning look. We're not here to interrogate. I'm not interrogating, Alexandra replied. I'm observing. Would you like some tea? Olivia offered, motioning toward the small table near the back where a few mismatched chairs circled a coffee pot and a tray of mugs. Alexandra nodded once. Yes, thank you. They sat, the three of them, and Olivia poured the tea with careful fingers. It was the kind of silence that stretched too long unless someone broke it. You own this shop? Alexandra asked. I manage it, Olivia said. I took over for the owner after she retired. I've been here almost 7 years. And you're raising a child on your own. Olivia met her eyes. Yes. His name is Reed. He's 5. Very articulate. Olivia blinked. You've met him? Alexandra sipped her tea. Briefly. Emerson brought him by the foundation office last week. He asked me to donate to his school. Olivia turned to Emerson. You didn't tell me that. I wasn't sure how you'd feel, he said. It was a small donation. Just enough to help them fix the library roof. Small? Alexandra echoed. You funded the entire renovation and added an art wing. Olivia stared at him. You said it was just a favor. It was, he said simply. A favor for you and for Reed. Alexandra set her teacup down. He's never done that for anyone. Not even for me. Emerson's jaw tightened. Because this is different. Alexandra nodded slowly. Yes, it is. She turned to Olivia again. My son has spent his entire life surrounded by people who say yes to his resources and no to his soul. You, however, seem to do the opposite. Olivia wasn't sure how to respond. I don't trust easily, Alexandra continued. But if you're what's grounding him, then I'm grateful. When Alexandra stood to leave, she extended a hand, graceful, deliberate. I hope we see more of each other. Olivia accepted the handshake. So do I. After she left, Emerson stayed behind. He stood by the counter, running his hand over the edge of a worn hardcover on display. I didn't mean for that to be a test, he said. She's protective, Olivia replied. I respect that. She's never liked anyone I've dated. Then I'm honored. He looked up. She's right, though. You are grounding me, and not in the way that tethers. In the way that keeps me from floating off into the wrong direction. Olivia stepped around the counter and leaned against it beside him. You don't have to say things like that. I'm not saying it to impress you. I know, she whispered. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath hitched. What are you doing? He didn't open it. He just held it in his palm. I thought I had everything figured out. But then I met you. And I realized I'd been building a life that looked perfect but didn't feel like anything. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Simple. Elegant. A single diamond nestled in a gold band that looked like it had been made to catch fire in sunlight. I want to marry you, he said. Not because of the timing or because it's what's expected, but because I can't imagine a day without you and Reed in it. Olivia stared at the ring, then at him. I'm not perfect, she said. I get overwhelmed. I forget things. I panic. Sometimes I shut down. So do I, he said softly. We'll figure it out. Together. She took the ring from the box and held it between her fingers. Then she reached for his hand and slid it onto her own. Yes, she said, voice thick. Yes to all of it. They didn't kiss in that moment. They just stood there, foreheads touching, hearts racing, the entire world folding in around them like a secret. Months later, the bookstore was filled with laughter and the scent of fresh flowers. Olivia stood in the aisle beneath a string of fairy lights wearing a dress the color of champagne. Reed stood proudly beside her, holding a velvet ring pillow like it was a crown. Emerson waited at the other end in a suit that made her knees weak and a smile that made everything else fade. The ceremony was small, just a few friends, some family, and shelves upon shelves of books. When she reached him, he took her hand without hesitation. You ready? He whispered. I've been ready since the park, she whispered back. He kissed her as the applause echoed through the room, and even the books seemed to sigh. Afterward, they danced in the empty space between shelves while Reed twirled in circles nearby, humming his favorite tune out of key. Everything was imperfect, which made it perfect. And when the night ended and they walked home hand in hand, Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just hope. Home. Forever.